Radium Springs Cave. In March 1955, two experienced divers undertook a historic yet perilous exploration of an underwater cave system within a large freshwater spring near Albany, Georgia. Their objective was to map portions of the cave deemed unmapped and to advance diving techniques under challenging underground conditions. The spring's entrance presented a wide sinkhole, drawing the divers into an inviting but deceptive calm. Equipped with homemade diving gear, common in that era, helmet-mounted lights, breathing tanks, and ropes, they began their descent into the dark, underwater tunnels. As they navigated deeper, the cave constricted into narrow submerged passages where water temperature dropped sharply and confined air pockets existed sporadically. Large cavernous chambers connected by tight crawls required careful maneuvering, especially over a silty bottom prone to rapid disturbance, which would instantly turn the water to opaque, murky darkness. Despite initially favorable visibility, progress was slow and cautious, made all the more difficult by the silence and isolation of this submerged world. Approximately 200 feet inside, visibility suddenly vanished as disturbed silt completely clouded the water, separating the divers. One diver lost sight of the other and was left disoriented in total darkness. The shrinking air supply heightened panic, and the absence of a guideline reel, a safety measure essential for reorientation, made navigation nearly impossible. Cold water seeped inside the suit, atmospheric pressure intensified, and physical conditions rapidly deteriorated as exhaustion and fear overtook him. Tragically, his breathing regulator slipped free, and oxygen levels became critically low, leaving him alone and gasping in the underwater void. Surface side, the waiting diver grew increasingly anxious as time passed without any sign. After an extended silence, local divers were alerted, and a rescue effort was launched using a dive line and underwater torches to search the murky, labyrinthine cave system. Hours later, the first diver's lifeless body was discovered, tangled near a narrow ledge, about 200 feet from the cave entrance. The malfunctioning flashlight and the regulator out of the mouth indicated a desperate struggle had ended in drowning. Notably, the water within this cave contained faint traces of radium, a naturally occurring radioactive element. Although the exposure level was insufficient to cause immediate radiation poisoning, it underscored an additional environmental risk factor intrinsic to the cave system. The diver's cause of death was officially ruled drowning, but the presence of radium amplified concerns about the cave's hidden dangers. This tragic event marked the first recorded cave diving fatality in the United States and had profound impacts on the safety standards of cave diving. The fatal dive exposed critical flaws in early diving practices, particularly the disregard or absence of safety protocols, such as the mandatory use of guideline reels, which help divers track their path back to the entrance. Additionally, the absence of a buddy system and emergency air-sharing equipment highlighted the vulnerabilities of solo or poorly coordinated dives in hazardous underwater caves. The incident became a turning point in diving history, driving the evolution of stricter regulations that included standardized equipment, comprehensive training, and emergency procedures to mitigate risks associated with cave diving. These changes helped prevent many subsequent tragedies by emphasizing preparation, caution, and respect for the unforgiving underwater environment. Radium Springs itself, famous for its cool, crystal-clear waters and complex cave system, was eventually sealed off to public access, mainly due to safety concerns and its hidden hazards. Its reputation as a dangerous site lingered, becoming a sobering symbol of the fine line between adventurous exploration and fatal consequence. The legacy of this early diving tragedy endures in the diving community as a sobering reminder that underwater caves pose unique and grave dangers. La Cueva de la Muerte. Deep within a rocky hillside near the San Miguel geological fault in Costa Rica lies La Cueva de la Muerte, or the Cave of Death, a small yet lethally deceptive cave, notorious for its deadly atmosphere. The narrow, jagged opening at the cave's mouth leads explorers into an eerie, quiet darkness where temperature and humidity shift subtly, creating a suffocating environment. Equipped with helmets, lights, gas detectors, ropes, and oxygen tanks, a group of explorers entered to study the geological faults and collect air and gas samples, unaware of the immediate danger lurking inside. As they descended, the cave's passage narrowed, forcing them to crawl between sharp limestone walls with cold droplets steadily falling. While the temperature outside was hot, inside the cave the air grew heavy and still, producing a disquieting silence punctuated only by faint breaths and dripping water. Suddenly, their torches flickered and extinguished, throwing them into absolute darkness. The gas monitors alarmed as dangerously high levels of carbon dioxide and lethal radon gas surged from fault fissures hidden deep within the cave's volcanic origins. These gases are colorless, odorless, and heavier than air, settling in low spots to create a toxic layer that suffocates living beings. The explorers' breaths became shorter and more labored as oxygen quickly thinned, causing panic, dizziness, burning lungs, and rapid heartbeat. Their senses dulled from the lack of oxygen and radiation exposure, impairing judgment and muscle control in this life-threatening environment. Despite sharing oxygen tanks and scrambling to escape, one member succumbed to suffocation, brought on by acute radon and carbon dioxide exposure, before reaching the surface. The others barely escaped, flagging for aid, but rescue efforts faced delays due to persistent toxic gases that rendered the cave too dangerous to enter quickly. The Cave of Death's deadly environment is rooted in its geological context. It emits an estimated 30 kilograms of carbon dioxide per hour, a substantial seep from organic matter and mineral deposits heated by magma near the San Miguel fault line. This gas accumulation creates a near-pure CO2 layer along the cave floor, where oxygen is virtually absent, suffocating any creature that ventures too low. The cave's top layer may hold some breathable oxygen, but closer to the ground, the air is lethal. Radon gas, a radioactive byproduct of uranium decay in surrounding rocks, compounds this danger by causing radiation poisoning symptoms for those exposed even briefly. This cave's silent lethality has claimed numerous victims, acting as a grim natural trap rather than hosting any physical threats like predators or venomous animals. The suffocating toxic air disrupts fire, extinguishing flames instantly and leaving only the faint alarm of gas detectors and falling water droplets as ominous reminders. The extreme risk posed by invisible gas layers accumulated due to the fault's geological conditions makes survival a razor-thin margin for explorers and rescuers alike. Jumandy Cave Incident, 2023. On the 10th of October, 2023, a group of professional cavers embarked on a routine exploration of the Jumandy cave system near Tena, Ecuador, a popular tourist site in the Amazon region known for its extensive limestone network. The team comprised a lead guide with over a decade of spelunking experience and a newcomer with casual caving interest, highlighting the mix of seasoned experts and novices common in such expeditions. Their mission was to map new sections of the cave and collect environmental radiation data to better understand its geological hazards. Equipped with helmets, LED headlamps for reliable illumination, standard rope gear for safe navigation, and portable radon detectors for real-time monitoring, they cautiously progressed into dimly lit limestone passageways. These featured winding tunnels, alternating wide chambers that echoed with vast emptiness, and narrow squeezes demanding physical agility. The air carried a faint metallic odor suggestive of mineral-rich rocks, remained cool at around 24-26 degrees Celsius, with silence broken only by occasional water drips from stalactites, contributing to an otherworldly, almost ethereal atmosphere inside the cave. The radon detectors quietly registered elevated levels of radon 222, a naturally occurring radioactive gas produced by the decay of uranium and thorium in the surrounding bedrock, with concentrations ranging from 156 to 4,100 becquerels per cubic meter, BQ, m cubed, across different monitoring points within the cave. These measurements vastly exceeded the internationally recognized safe limit of 148 becquerels per cubic meter, recommended by organizations like the World Health Organization, with some areas surpassing it by a factor of 28, reaching peaks like 4,100 becquerels per cubic meter deep inside during wetter periods. The highest radon concentrations were detected deep within the cave, especially during the wet season, when temperature drops trigger increased emissions of radon gas from the cave's geological formations. as lower temperatures reduce gas dispersion. These elevated radon levels originate from uranium and thorium deposits embedded in the limestone and surrounding rock, which decay to produce radon gas that seeps through fissures and accumulates in confined, poorly ventilated spaces like these limestone caves, creating pockets of high radioactivity. Despite the dangerous radon levels averaging 1,381 becquerels per cubic meter at the entrance alone, no immediate acute symptoms such as nausea, dizziness, or respiratory distress were reported by the group during this visit, allowing them to complete their tasks. Still, members were fully aware that long-term exposure to radon-222 poses significant health risks, including a markedly increased lifetime risk of lung cancer, the second leading cause of this disease after smoking. Radon decays into alpha-emitting progeny particles that lodge deep in the lungs when inhaled, continuously irradiating sensitive lung tissue over years and potentially causing serious cellular damage, DNA mutations, and carcinogenesis. The risk is comparable to hazards faced by uranium and coal miners historically exposed to radioactive dust and gas in poorly ventilated mines, where similar chronic exposures led to elevated cancer rates. In the Jumandy cave, even brief visits could accumulate measurable radiation doses, with guides facing up to 10 MSV annually, 10 times the occupational limit of 1 MSV year, prompting calls for exposure tracking. Researchers emphasize the necessity of strict protocols to manage radiation exposure in the Jumandy cave and similar environments worldwide, including time limits per visit, mandatory detector use, and ventilation assessments. Inhabitants such as cave guides and frequent visitors face substantially higher radiation doses, close to 10 millisieverts (MSV) annually, which is approximately 10 times the recommended maximum for occupational exposure, typically 1 MSV per year beyond natural background. This elevated dose far exceeds limits set for radiation safety by bodies like the International Commission on Radiological Protection and increases the risk of long-term health consequences, including not just lung cancer, but potential respiratory diseases. The findings underscore the importance of monitoring radon levels continually, especially seasonally, and implementing measures to minimize exposure time, enhance airflow, and provide respiratory protection during exploration and tourism activities. Together with global radiation-related cave incidents, Jumandy exemplifies how undetected radon hazards pose fatal or chronic risks to explorers without proper instruments, as seen in cases from Europe to Asia. Caves in uranium-rich areas like this demand scientific assessment, regular surveys, and regulations to protect visitors and workers from recurrent exposure. The expedition underscores awareness of natural radiation in caves, where elevated radon-222 levels create long-term health threats despite no immediate harm. Strict safety measures, such as dose badges, training programs, and public warnings, alongside ongoing research, are essential to safeguard all who explore these deceptively inviting environments.